Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Nabela. I'm from International Business Administration Study Program Semester 6A. I would like to present about Enterprise Resource Planning or ERP. In this first slide, we talk about ERP system concepts. An ERP system is an attempt to integrate all functions across the company to a single computer system that can serve all those functions' specific needs. Integration is the key word for ERP implementation. These ERP systems providing many benefits like enterprise integration, business process reengineering, standardizing systems and procedures across the enterprise, transparency, business networking, best global management practices, global information systems infrastructure. For acquiring these benefits, firms adopting ERP systems and to meet the market and customer demand. And then in the next slide, the historical evolution of the ERP systems. The focus of manufacturing system in the 1960s was on inventory control. Companies could afford to keep lots of just-in-case inventory on hand to satisfy customer demand and still stay competitive. In the 1970s, it became increasingly clear that companies could no longer afford the luxury of maintaining large quantities of inventory. This led to the introductions of material requirement planning or ERP systems. In the 1980s, companies began to take advantage of the increased power and affordability of available technology and then occur MRP too. By the early 1990s, continuing improvement in technology allowed MRP2 to be expanded to incorporate all resource planning for the entire enterprise. And now we're going to the next slide, Manufacturing Requirements Planning or MRP. Materials Requirement Planning or MRP is a technique for determining the quantity of and the time to purchase demand items necessary to meet the needs of the Master Production Schedule or MPS. The system will control the supply of raw materials effectively, reducing the risk of less amounts of raw materials or excessive so that the production activity of company XYZ can run optimally. There are three MRP input data include MPS or Master Production Schedule. MPS is the schedule for end items. It states the quantity and timing of production of specific end items. Second, BOM or Bill of Material. BOM describes the structure of the products. It states from level to level the components needed to make the parent items. And inventory status. On-hand inventory is the present inventory. On-order inventory is the future inventory and has to be represented by both quantity and receiving date. In this slide is MRP procedure. In MPS procedure, the available to produce or ATP is also determined. MPS is then fed into the MRP procedure to determine the requirements of the lower level components and raw materials. And here are calculations on MRP program. The gross requirements of components are determined by calculating the planned order release or POR of the parents via single level BOM explosion. The net requirements are calculated by subtracting the on-hand inventory and scheduled receipts or on order in each item in each time bucket. Planned order receipts appear in every period. Lead time offsetting shifts the planned order receipts backward and derives the POR, which are the MRP result of current items. The MRP procedure continues to explore the POR to obtain the gross requirements of its components. The MRP repeats the procedure until the POR of all items are determined. If the calculated net requirement is positive, then it is the net requirement of the item is in that period. If the calculated net requirement is negative, then it is the projected available balance at the end of that period. And now it is about limitation of MRP. The effective operation and efficiency of an MRP system depends on the integrity of the files and records of relevant data. The quality is directly influenced by data accessibility, up-to-dateness, and accuracy. Computer-based MRP, even more than manual, will not perform satisfactorily with poor files and records. The outputs from computer-based MRP systems are dependent on its input. And here's about manufacturing resource planning 2. MRP2 system is implemented in order to regulate and carry out the effective functioning of the plants and organizations as a whole. It is concerned with the integration of the aspects of manufacturing process, including materials, finance, and human relations. The goal of MRP2 is to provide consistent data to all members related to the manufacturing process as the product moves forward in the production line. Here are the key steps in the procurement process. Step 1. Identify what's needed. The first stage in the procurement process is recognizing the need for a product. Step 2. Submit a purchase request. The individual needing the purchase submits a purchase request to the company, usually via the company's procurement software. Step 3. Assess and select vendors. Once a supplier is chosen, companies should develop that relationship over time and to establish the best value, get the best price, and save time on their future procurement activities. Step 4. Negotiate price and terms. After choosing a supplier, the procurement team will negotiate the best price and specific terms, example delivery times for the purchase. Step 5. Create a purchase order. A purchase order is a formal contract used to buy the product. Step 6. Receive and inspect the delivered goods. Once delivered, the receiving company is responsible for inspecting the product and accepting receipts. Step 7. Conduct three-way matching. Purchase orders, packaging slips. This will arrive with the order and vendor invoices. Three-way matching can identify and prevent discrepancies that result in huge losses of income. So if a discrepancy is found, it should be investigated and resolved immediately. Step 8. Approve the invoice and arrange payment. Approve the invoice when everything looks good and a three-way match is complete. Next, arrange payment. Step 9. Record keeping. The receiving or buying company must maintain proper records for bookkeeping and accounting purposes. And in the last slide, ERP web application. ERP also includes application modules for the finance and human resources aspects of a business. Major enterprise application software solution providers have already marked their existence in the web services architecture. Oracle's SAP and PeopleSoft are the front bench members of this aspect, with many of them already having accelerated to the web services way of life. And here's a video related to ERP implementation. The name of the video is WBS Nestle ERP implementation. Let's watch it.
Work breakdown schedule, or you can call it WBS. Business plan is a document that summarizes the operational plans and budget, showing how the objectives are to be realized. Business plan of this project are Nestle implementing ERP, codename BEST or BEST, to use common business process, system, and organizational structure across the autonomous division within the United States. Project charter in this project are about MOV, schedule, budget, quality issues, resource required, and assumption and risk. Scope statement. The scope of this project are: number 1, system purchasing; number 2, system financials; number 3, system sales and distribution; number 4, account payable and account receivable. Collect the required information. Before we develop or implement the ERP, we need to gather some information about the software, hardware, required IT staff, the history of other companies that implement the same software, and learn from the other mistakes. Select the information. Nestle need to pay attention with IT staff information. Big company like Nestle might need a lot of IT staff team. The hardware needs to be chosen with a high specification. The system development is the process for planning, creating, testing, and deploying a system. Recheck the previous user requirement and match with the current system. It's the requirement validation. System test. Testing the current system and evaluate it. System integration. Integrating the ERP module to the work with the company's business process and enhancing the work performance.
So from the video, we know that Nestle implementing ERP software called named BEST or BEST. Key is common business process system and organizational structure across the autonomous divisions within the United States. That's all about Enterprise Resource Planning or ERP from me. Thank you for your attention. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.